Hello and welcome to the Thursday Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's a lion who doesn't care about the opinion of the sheep. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Is that a Game of Thrones reference?
Actually, so it was a Tywin Lannister line, but it's an old line that goes back, I think, many years, right? Tywin Lannister, George R. R. Martin did not invent it. It's also a line uttered by Michael Bradley.
Interesting.
After Toronto practice recently, in response to those Alexi Lalas comments.
Interesting that he's going with the Lannisters there. That's not the one that you usually want to ally yourself with.
Well, I'm wondering if Michael Bradley's quote is directly Game of Thrones inspired, or if it's sort of like, old... it goes back as far as like Aesop's Fables, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like that's Game of Thrones inspired, though.
Yeah, probably,
Since that is what kind of brings it to prominence most recently.
Yeah.
And so maybe he watched that and was like, yeah, that's a good quote. I'm going with that.
MB90's gone back and watched season 1, because I think it's Tywin's introduction, right?
It might be.
He's gone back to the very start to catch up.
Yes.
Michael Bradley in binge mode.
Yeah.
But so there's a response from Michael Bradley and there's a response from Christian Pulisic, and they've both kind of come out fighting.
Oh, I saw Bradley's. I didn't see Pulisic's.
Yeah, it was just about there's pressure. It's fine.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a lot of, we're going to, essentially, Bradley's quote is, I take that quote to mean not, the Lannisters are going to murder the Starks. I think his quote is more like, we don't worry about other people's opinions, we're just going to get the job done.
So, spoiler alert. Sorry about that. Second of all...
Season 1. And it's just Tywin stating his intent, essentially.
Sure. But see, Tywin is never that, open about his intent. It's always hidden. And I do like the idea that maybe Alexia...
Sorry, he's skinning a deer, as he says it. So it's maybe not so much about Starks as Baratheons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
He's gutting it.
Okay.
More apt for that show.
Yeah.
But
back to soccer?
My point was going to be, I do like the idea then of, this long plan where Alexi Lalas is, branding for Christian Pulisic. Because he is kind of going to be Wonder Boy for a little while, I think, is what people are going to, ironically or straightforwardly, call him.
So I'm starting to like that this has become the story. There's pressure on the US players, and it's come from Alexi Lalas, and now they have to respond in some way or another. And even if it's not very kumbaya, the US players have come out fighting. Maybe they'll have that sort of siege mentality that, Alex Ferguson used to like to instill that in his Man United players, and it kind of worked for a good many years. So maybe Lalas has done that to the United States.
I'm sure that was his objective overall. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think it was, right? To sort of call them out and sort of make them bunker and go for it.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced?
No. I mean, I think he was just probably pretty frustrated in calling them out.
I think it was more tactical.
Sure.
More tactical. All right, today's show, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 listener questions to get to. Really excited, really good questions we've got from our listeners. Are you ready for the first one, Taylor?
I am
Are you
indeed.
Sitting comfortably?
I am indeed.
Are you not concerned with the opinion of sheep?
I am not.
So, Lucas Muller actually has 2 questions.
I actually kind of am concerned with the opinion of sheep. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, sheep are nice. They're fluffy. They give us wool. I care about sheep.
Lucas Muller, his first question is, if you could pick anyone to manage the US men's national team, whom would you pick and why? So this is money's not an object, desire of the person to do it is not an object, current employment is not a problem. Who is the best person in your eyes to manage the US men's national team right now?
And my answer is Yogi Low.
Ooh, okay. That's not my answer, but I'm interested to hear why it's yours.
Sure. Do you want to give yours, or do you want me to
No, I
explain
want to hear
why?
all about yours first.
All right, because I think basically a national team, having a system doesn't necessarily work if it's a very complex system. Because as we've seen with Pep Guardiola, with Pochettino, with many other coaches who run kind of specific systems, it takes a lot of work. You got to get everybody on the same page.
And it takes very particular players, right?
Yeah.
The reason for I was tempted by Guardiola for a bit, and the more I thought about it, it's he can't go and buy Gundogan and get him in the US men's national team, right?
Or just even Jurgen Klopp as well. Either you can't go buy the player, or it takes a lot of training to get everybody to understand what you're trying to do. I think the only way it does work is if you keep a core set of players, like Costa Rica have done, like Chile have done. But the United States, we're always talking about players coming through, and there's so many players doing so many different things that I don't know if that works. Whereas Yogi Low has proven success at international level, obviously. Speaks English, which is pretty helpful, but also has a proven track record of bringing in new players and young players and relying on veterans, getting the best out of veterans, but also not being afraid to bring in somebody young to see if they can compete.
Okay, I like all that. The only thing that worries me is I feel like Yogi Löw has only ever been able to work with the really high-level German players, right?
Yeah.
And there's a bit of Jurgen Klinsmann continuity there as well. It's just we'll keep having Germany's ex-coach.
Yeah.
Because the line of succession in German coaches was Klinsmann, Yogi Löw, and then he's been there a long time.
Yep.
So then we'll just get the third guy after that as well to come in, and we'll just keep having Germany's cast-offs.
I think the kind of prevailing theory is that maybe Germany were good under Jurgen Klinsmann because of Jogi Löw.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Who is the assistant. So I do wonder if maybe he'll want to come in and like really kind of cement that reputation as being better than Jurgen Klinsmann.
So I got to tell you, I would not be unhappy if Jogi Löw was appointed the US men's national team manager. Fingers crossed, maybe, for the future. His next up.
I mean, again, this is with like salary requirements and his willingness to take the job, because I do not think he would be that willing to take it.
Right, yeah, okay. Maybe we crowdfund it?
Sure.
1% tax increase across the nation?
Yeah, everybody would love that.
My choice is Jose Mourinho. So partly because of all the reasons you listed earlier about why it couldn't be Guardiola or Klopp necessarily, because you can't get Sadio Mane to come and do that pressing system. The thing I love about Jose Mourinho is that he always seems like the guy who will research the opposition, get a dossier and figure out sort of his best approach for that specific game. And I've got this feeling that international football would really, really suit him, because you've got a long time, you've got like a month to focus on one game. Can you imagine his Honduras dossier?
Well, but here's my question, is that you, I feel like at other points this season and previously have said, like, you wonder if maybe he's been found out a little bit, that maybe he's not quite like the tactical maven that we thought he was at the time.
So, yeah, one of the things I said is that like, things like Guardiola and Klopp, their sort of advances are beyond like the style that Mourinho has, which is very reactive, right? So that maybe that's a mismatch in terms of success. Right now it's going okay in the Premier League, I would say. But what I really think is Mourinho is suited to that international role, because you can't implement sort of a complicated system where, with Guardiola you have to have like people trained to be in certain zones depending on where the ball is to like dictate the movement. It's not possible to do that the week before an international match. Whereas I think Mourinho's instructions, they're more like the sort of things that we would like to see the US do, right? It's quite simple patterns and quite simple things, like Ander Herrera marking Eden Hazard out of the game when Man United played Chelsea last season. Like, that's a thing that could work at international level. And they're pretty simple set pieces with like big guys at the far post. Like, I really feel like he could just really drill down and get the most out of the US men's national team.
Yeah, and that all makes sense to me. I think my only trepidation with him is just that he's never managed at the international level before. And I do think it's a little bit like going from like college football to going to pros. Sometimes it works well. A lot of times it doesn't go well.
So he was nearly the England manager, I think, when Capello took the job, and his wife talked him out of it because his wife said, "You're too young. You're too busy every day. You don't want to go a month between games." But maybe like in the future, Mourinho, it could work as a national team coach.
Right, but I think it works like the most obvious like situations I can think of when a club manager has had success is when he's managing the national team that he represents. So like Antonio Conte going from Juventus to Italy.
Right, like, same players as well, right? You can take Bonucci with you.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. But I do wonder if there's like a little bit more leeway given because you like are from that country, you have represented them, or you've coached within like that system. So I do wonder if Jose Mourinho might struggle a little bit going to the United States, where he does not have much familiarity with Major League Soccer.
I mean, that's possible. Yeah, he'd have to figure out MLS and all that. But I would trust him to do the work and figure it out. The other reason I really like Mourinho as a national team coach is, even though he's been with very, very, very big clubs in the last few years, he made his bones by getting the most out of smaller teams and having big success with them. Right? Like Porto winning the Champions League is still kind of amazing. And the club he was at before that, I can't remember who they are, that's how small they are, but he had a Portuguese team that he did very well with to get the Porto job to begin with.
And then after that?
And after that, all big clubs, right? Because that's how it goes, right? You get the big jobs, but at least he proved that, say, at Porto, he could sort of design a system and get the most out of players. That's really what managing the US national team should be about, right? It's getting the most out of the players you've got. That in mind, my second choice would be Sam Allardyce. For that very reason. And because I feel like pints of wine, wonderful, in the United States.
Oh boy.
You'd have to take his ID with him.
That would be catastrophic. That would be such a bad idea.
Or maybe, this is off the table, but what do you think of Sir Alex Ferguson? If he's already teaching at Harvard, if you could get him to coach the US national team a few years out from retirement, is he out of touch too much now, or is that a job he would succeed at?
I mean, I think it's a job he would succeed at. I think there's no chance you're ever going to get him to take it. I think he's very happy just to be lecturing at times, watching horses run at times, drinking with Sean Connery at times. Yeah, I think you're probably not going to really get him out of there. But yeah, I'm sure he'd do well because I have complete faith in him to figure out all problems always. Right.
But Mourinho or Jogi Löw, right? Two choices.
Put it this way. If there were a zombie apocalypse, I want Sir Alex Ferguson leading my
not
pack.
The zombies.
No, no, definitely not. But I want him leading my pack because he's going to find a way to be like, all right, we're going to set up defenses here. We're going to lure them in this way.
Yeah.
We're going to he's always got solutions. I trust in him.
Like a more trustworthy Rick Grimes.
Unless they're German zombies, then we're going to have problems.
All right, we have. You feel like you've answered that question? I feel really good about that. Second question from Lucas Muller, because these were really good questions. I love the short, sharp questions that's actually a question, as opposed to an opinion and then what do you guys think, which is some of the questions we get. Lucas Muller's second question: why doesn't the United Kingdom have a national team? Seems like between England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, they would be fantastic. So, I mean, I kind of know this because it's my territory, right? Why do you think the United Kingdom does not have a national team?
All right, so I have two answers. So the first one was like my gut answer. Like I was just like, oh yeah. Like when I first read this question, I had my answer. The second one, I thought more about it. And I think the second one is probably the correct one. Okay. So my gut answer was just that you probably can't have like an empire as a national team. You can't have 4, 5, 6 countries suddenly combine all of their talents.
Okay, so that's incorrect because there really is, like, my passport says the United Kingdom, right? There is really no England that's recognised outside of sporting events.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
right.
We go to the Olympics as Great Britain. We are, like, passport says UK. When I put my nationality, I put UK. So, yeah.
So, you're right. So then I
never
thought
trust your gut.
Well, right. So then I thought more about this, and I think the reality is that people forget that, there's lots of, people claim whatever they claim, but I'm going to go with the kind of prevailing theory, prevailing belief, which is that England invented soccer, and Scotland were also quite there with it. And so
Scotland invented passing.
Yeah, there you go. But so for the longest time, 4 of the best countries, or 3 or 2 of the best countries in the world, were those 4 teams that we just talked about. So I think there's probably an idea that by the time that was a possibility, because there weren't many other countries competing, by the time lots of countries were competing, they had kind of established themselves as independent entities, and it didn't make sense to combine.
As Christoph Waltz says, that's a bingo.
There we go.
Yeah. So the very first international soccer match was England-Scotland in 1872, the first official one. There's one even before that was 1870. It finished 0-0. Because soccer's not always exciting. But yeah, so the English FA was formed, the Scottish FA was formed to play against each other. They kind of, at the time, there was no Premier League, there was no big TV deal. It was the 1870s. There weren't teams, they only thought maybe they'd just end up playing against each other. And then it just grew from there, right? So yeah, it's like you said, it's too late. By the time it spreads, there's already an England team and a Scotland team, and then later on there's a Welsh team, and then later on there's a Northern Irish FA. I think it's called the Irish Football Association.
FAI, I believe it is.
And this, so it's so integral, or so like such a founding thing in the game, that the rules are set by this board called IFAB. Do you know about IFAB, the International Football Association board? And it's FIFA have 4 votes, and then England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland each have a vote. So it's kind of a special exception because of the role that England and Scotland especially played in the formation of the game of soccer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There you go.
It is strange, though, because, what we've learned so much about English-British history is they just love being combined. They just love operating together as one unit. I can't believe that it would be difficult to get all 4 of them to combine.
And here's the thing. In recent history, it's gone more towards, they call it devolution, right? Now, Scotland has its own parliament. Wales has its own parliament where they set, tax and stuff for their region, right? So it's more like there's not more coming together. I mean, there was a referendum on Scottish independence that only just failed not so long ago. It's very unlikely that there's more coming together within the United Kingdom. It's more likely that there's more moving in opposite directions.
Edward the Longshanks, if he were to be resurrected, would be like, what is happening? This is unacceptable.
I want a combined football team. Worth noting, so the reason there's no Great Britain team at the Olympics, at Olympic soccer, is because they refused to do this.
Except for the one time.
Except for the one time when they had to do it when London hosted the Olympics. But even then, Scotland refused to participate. Yeah. That's why it was mostly English players with a couple Welsh players thrown in.
English players and Ryan Giggs.
Pretty much. I think maybe Aaron Ramsey or someone like that was involved. But yeah, so the reason I say that is because the Scottish FA, for example, they want to exist, they want to survive. And if they go to, if there becomes a United Kingdom Football Association, then the Scottish FA ceases to be. The English FA kind of ceases to be, but because they're by far the bigger, they've got more financial muscle, it's more like a hostile takeover, right? So the Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish FAs have a lot more vested interest in not being swallowed by a United Kingdom Football Association. And that's the reason they would fight it.
That makes sense to me. All right, so I think we should move away from complex geopolitical issues bleeding into soccer. Let's go to Adam Ulrich's question. If Catalonia achieves independence from Spain, how do you think it will impact La Liga and the Spanish national team in the short and long term?
Oh, wow. Okay, so
just a quick, easy question.
Yeah, so a bit of the background on this. Catalonia is the northeastern region of Spain. It contains Barcelona. It's kind of a prosperous region. Millions of people live there. And they've always had this, longing for independence. They recently have set an actual referendum on independence for October of this year, which the Spanish government does not recognise. So we're massively at odds here when the Catalonian region is having what they're calling a binding referendum on independence, where the people of Catalonia will vote. The Spanish government is saying, you can do that, but that's illegal and we're not going to recognize it. So we're heading for trouble here. It's literally called the Spanish constitutional crisis. It has its own Wikipedia page.
There we go. And that's always the sign. That
it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so, but let's go with the idea that the referendum passes and Catalonia decides to be independent of Spain. Then Adam's question is, how would it impact La Liga and how does it impact the Spanish national team? And I've talked a lot, so I guess I'll leave it to you to speculate first, Taylor.
Sure.
And obviously the answer is we don't know because it hasn't happened, but I guess it's a fun, depending on your perspective, thought experiment.
Well, I think the thing that kind of made it difficult for me, because on the surface I was just like, oh, okay, we're talking about soccer, that's it. And so when it's just soccer, I think that changes it. But when you look at it from again, geopolitics and the way that would impact things is that maybe Spanish politicians don't necessarily care what happens to La Liga. They care more about keeping the taxes and everything that comes out of Catalonia. So they might be more inclined to say all right, that's fine, but you are done. You are not so if the government said you're not allowed to be participate in anything Spanish anymore, then that would limit things. But my assumption is that La Liga would continue to want Barcelona and Espanyol and everybody else. I forget who the other clubs are, but I think there's
a Girona. Is the third biggest team, and the fourth highest ranked team is Barcelona B.
Yeah.
We read the same article.
We sure did. So I don't think that you would have a Catalonian league. I think La Liga would probably just say, yes, you all can continue to play. If the Spanish government said no, then I think there's a decent chance.
Well, FIFA law is government can't interfere in soccer.
This is true.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. I mean, let's ask Siri how that's going. But I think if that were to be the case, then there's also maybe a decent argument to be made that they could petition, or Ligue 1 might come calling and say, hey, we've already got Monaco. They're not French, but we let them play.
So Ligue 1, if you look at the map, Ligue 1 is just Catalonia is northeast of Spain and it borders France. So, I mean, Liga 1 could absorb Barcelona and Espanyol and Girona and Barcelona B and all the other Catalonian teams.
And then you get into
that's one option.
And then you get into the other theories of you might have an Iberian league where you'd combine La Liga and Portugal and Catalonia. You could even have the European Super League. I mean, all of these are options.
If the European Super League was more of a possibility where you could do a full season like that, that would kind of solve all of Barcelona's problems, right? But I think it's just come it's come too soon for that, or that hasn't happened yet, at least.
So I think...
By the way, one thing I want to say is you said you don't think there could be a Catalonian league. There are it's a big enough region that, if you pumped up some of the smaller teams, you could create a small regional league. It'd be like the size of the Netherlands, maybe. Yeah, and if you think the SPL is ridiculous when it comes to disparity in point totals, get ready for Barcelona to finish the season. That's true.
Very much undefeated.
I guess it's not in their interest to just smash everybody.
No, and it also,
every week.
It also takes away a lot of the allure of playing, or not a lot of the allure, but it takes away certainly some of the desire to play for Barcelona. That you're not going to play Real Madrid twice a season. You're not going to have El Clasico. You're not going to have those kind of dramatic fixtures and playing against top tier opposition. You're going to be playing against Espanyol and then maybe Barcelona B.
And I would say that it's also in, for example, Real Madrid's interest and in La Liga's interest to keep Barcelona as part of La Liga, because it's kind of one of the best things. I mean, the best thing in there is El Clasico, right? Other fans of other teams might disagree, but it's the thing that gets worldwide attention, and a league is better with bigger and stronger teams, right? So my guess is, if this happened, that they would find a way for Barcelona to compete in La Liga.
Yeah. Well, that was, I think, in that same Sidlow article for The Guardian. His point was basically that Barcelona probably wouldn't suffer, but maybe a lot of the other clubs would, because maybe Barcelona are too big to have them out in the cold. But maybe some of the other ones
too big to sail.
But you could make the other ones, you can make them sort of the example a little bit, and maybe that would be the problem. So I think it would either be La Liga would continue to exist, it would just be a little bit complicated, or maybe they would go for that Iberian League. And as a way to sort of
pushes us towards the Iberian League, which would be real exciting for Portugal and Spain, right?
But I think it allows you then to kind of save face, because it's not La Liga being I know you left, but come on back, whatever. And anybody else who wants to leave, you're more than welcome. It would be more we're a new thing now, we don't even care.
And there is a mechanism for this, right? Because I keep seeing in the recent days, because the referendum is coming. This is why Adam asked the question, right? I keep seeing a quote from the head of the Spanish sort of league. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but who says it would be impossible, because right now there's nothing that says teams from the independent Catalonia region could play in La Liga, right? But there is a thing.
Why would that exist?
But there's also a thing that says Andorran teams can play in La Liga. There is Andorra FC, I believe. I mean, they're terrible. They're not the fifth tier, but they're in the Spanish football system. And Andorra is that separate country, which I believe is mostly mountains, that sits between Spain and France. It's an independent country, and they allow them to play in Spanish football just by writing a line into the sort of whatever the founding document is. All they got to do is add another line and say, also Catalonian teams can play.
Yeah.
Problem solved. It would be as simple as that.
I mean, it's
sort of. I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
I'm taking this to the extreme level. It is not dissimilar from like if like a spaceship landed from Mars and out came like the Martian planetary football team, and we're like, oh no, you're not allowed to play because we don't have any rules about like Martians playing.
Yeah, the league would
just be like,
right?
Yeah, of course we don't. Like, unless maybe the Premier League does.
Yeah.
Maybe they've just covered all their bases. Who knows?
It's already there.
But yeah, like I think stuff doesn't exist until you make it exist.
Game 39
is not the way matter works, but whatever, I'm fine with it.
Game 39 is versus aliens.
Yeah, obviously.
What about the Spanish national team then?
That's the one that I think would have a big impact because there's no way. Because at first I was like, well, maybe they would just continue, but like as a separate. But no, I mean, if you declare independence, if you're saying we are an independent thing, we are not then going to be like, but we'll still play on the national team.
Yep, and you know, there's already a Catalonia national team. Right?
Yeah, that's
they play sort of friendly matches here and there.
Yeah, it's like if you look at Pep Guardiola's Wikipedia page, lots of plugs for Wikipedia today.
Yeah.
Like he has many caps for Spain and then a few caps for Catalonia.
Yeah,
I think
and
like Andalusia has that as well. Like they all have their kind of own regional national teams.
Yeah,
but obviously those are unofficial.
Those exist as like expressions of sort of patriotism in many ways, like even more so than Barcelona, because Barcelona is kind of a repository for a lot of patriotic feelings for Catalonia. But so that team only exists as like almost a wish fulfillment type thing right now, I believe, as I understand it.
Yeah.
But it very easily could be a real thing, right? Like Kosovo have put together a really decent team from a very small region. Catalonia, if they've got all the best sort of Barcelona players coming through, it would be a blow to the Spanish national team.
Yeah.
But it would also, you would get one new European country that's probably very, very good at soccer.
I would say probably not as good as you would think, though, because it is still...
I'm going to say better than England.
Yeah, well, that's not saying much. I think
because they've already got like Iniesta,
I believe technically
Busquets,
right now Peru
PK.
I think Peru is better than England right now. Well, so there you go. Yeah, I mean that's true. But keep listing past that, and like you'll get some, but it's not as many as you would think. Yes, it's still a lot, and there would still be a very good national team.
Deulofeu.
But I think sure. But I think sometimes it's really easy to think of Barcelona and be like, oh man, they'd have Leo Messi. It's like no, they would not. He is Argentinian. Like so, I do that sort of like, oh man, like the Catalonian national team of like Leo Messi and Luis Suarez. That's not how it works. like so. I think there is that element that you have to consider as well.
But I wonder, so I don't know, I wonder how many Catalonian really talented players there are just playing for other teams in a Liga. Like not even playing for Espanyol, but playing for, I don't know, like not Bilbao, obviously, for very specific reasons.
Anybody with Barcelona B on their Wikipedia page.
Yeah. But I'm saying they could easily put together a national team.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think, I mean, absolutely. I just think, like, in my mind, it was immediately like, oh, those two would be, like,
you
that'd
imagine
be amazing.
just Barcelona entering the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be the best two teams in the world. It'd be awesome. But yeah, no.
They have a cool jersey. I think it'd be like red and yellow, I think is what the Catalonia jersey is like, because it matches the flag.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
So for the Spanish national team, obviously losing those players would hurt, but there is always that question of Spanish unity within the Spanish national team, especially when it tends to be half Barcelona, half Real Madrid, with a sprinkling of Atletico players. I think it would remove...
And then all the players playing elsewhere.
Right, it would remove that problem, and I bet they'd still have plenty of players to choose from.
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, I think they'd be just
So
fine.
it might even be okay for Spain in the long term, given they just have so many talented players to pick from.
But I guess that's maybe where my ignorance of Spain comes in, is I don't know, like, is it as historically fractured as, say, the Belgian national team, where you've got all the different like ethnic groups and different languages being spoken that leads to a lot of discord in the locker room? Or is it just sort of like, we don't really get along when we play for club teams, but at national level, PK and Sergio Ramos can hug each other and it's not a weird thing?
It seems to me like my guess is, and again, this is guess speculation, that the Spanish players, especially over the last 10 years or so, recognize that, we are of superior quality, and if we just like get it together, we can win tournaments, right? So it almost doesn't matter.
It's almost like they won 3 in a row.
Exactly right. So it also almost doesn't matter if like PK or Iniesta don't feel like some burning passion for the Spanish like national anthem, like they maybe prefer Catalonia. But as long as they're just like they have a burning passion to win a nice big gold trophy called the World Cup, it's kind of okay.
I feel like that, I'm with you. But if they were to split,
it worked.
that is the new El Clasico.
Oh, absolutely. That would be magnificent.
Can you imagine if they played each other in a World Cup?
Kind of, but there's nothing to debate then, right? Because right now the Barcelona thing has this like potential independent region striving for independence, romantic story about it. But once you actually achieve independence, it no longer has that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that those two would then very much enjoy playing each other and very much not enjoy losing to the other one.
I mean, I would set my DVR.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Right. Two more questions to get to, Daryl Grove?
Yeah, but first, today's sponsor, is Roughneck Scarves, one of our favourite sponsors. Roughneck Scarves are the official providers of scarves for US Soccer, Major League Soccer, the USL and the NCAA. We did a US soccer thing for today's ad read. The Alexi Lalas stuff we mentioned at the top of the show, where he called out the soft tattooed millionaires of the US national team.
Yeah, that was the only part that really did feel a little bit like an old man. I was just like, I don't like their tattoos and their hair.
It's good copywriting, though.
Yeah.
So we asked, if you were to design a custom scarf, which you can do...
I'm sorry, hold on, I got to interject here. I'm going to go back to this. This is the one thing that I feel like Alexi Lalas is sort of off base on, because I feel like he wanted to go, we talked about this the other day with Paul Pogba and people criticizing his hair, and I feel like Alexi Lalas wanted to say with their preening hairstyles and like all they want to be known for is their, oh right, I had that giant red hair and the giant red beard. Tattoos aren't okay.
And also two of the key guys, Michael Bradley, just straight shaved head.
Yeah, that too.
Christian Pulisic's haircut is so nondescript I couldn't even tell you what it is.
There you go.
It's just hair. It just sits there, right?
It's one of
it's kind of like mine. It's just a non-haircut.
You know, North Korea has the 12 approved haircuts, and you just point to one. I think Christian Pulisic pointed to just brunette guy. That's it. There we go.
So, after Lalas called the players out, we wondered if you wanted to sort of represent what Alexi Lalas said on Fox Sports 1, what would it look like on a Roughneck scarf?
Sure. John Adams, not that one, says side 1 is Pulisic wearing a cape doing yoga led by Zen Bradley. Side 2 is Alexi mowing his lawn with a menacing face.
I'm also picturing that menacing face with the lawnmower.
I have a hard time picturing a menacing face from Alexi Lalas, I have to say.
I can do it in stitched form for Roughneck Scarves. El Conejito says, a red-bearded Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. Have you seen Gran Torino?
I have seen Gran Torino.
So imagine Clint Eastwood when he goes on the rampage, but with a big 1994 Alexi Lalas beard.
We're really going with the grumpy old man.
Yeah. I mean, he did end it by saying, get off my lawn.
True. Christian Roldan, one side would have Alexi holding a bell, the other side is a USMNT lineup with shame superimposed over them.
We've been told no Game of Thrones spoilers, but people will get that.
That is a pretty good one. That is a pretty good one.
Also, did you notice the Twitter name there is Christim Roldan?
Yeah.
It didn't print out, because I gave you the printout. Has a little star after it. I'm guessing not his real name, but a Seattle fan and a big Christian Roldan fan. P. Fleegs says, a detailed pattern of truth bombs and fire, which P. Fleegs also represented with emojis of bum fire, bum fire, bum fire.
John Randolph, the front is Lalas attaches the ball and chain manacles labeled guilt to players' legs. The back is chains broken. The players now have super strong legs.
I like this because I honestly think I said this at the top of the show, that this is what Alexi Lalas was going for, right? You put loads of pressure on the players, makes them stronger, and if they can come through that, they're sort of forged in fire, and it just makes the US team a bit stronger. I think he's trying to do the equivalent of the Brian Strauss Sports Illustrated article in March 2013, where it suddenly blows things up a little bit and changes the dynamic.
But see, the difference there, and this is what I was trying to get to earlier, is that I don't think Brian Strauss's goal there was not to blow up the locker room and have it be this crazy, things got to change, the players want change. He's a reporter. He's not writing a thesis.
There's a story there and I want to get it out.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what he's doing here, sort of knowing that, players are probably going to see that, players are probably going to hear about it. I don't think his goal is to be they're going to see this and they're going to be we're going to win for Alexi. But it is sort of to remind them that they've got pressure on them, and to remind probably fans that there are pundits out there who are pretty upset by things.
This just occurred to me that maybe one of the things he was talking about, Alexis was talking about how implying that they had it tough in the 90s, right? It was not an easy situation for them, and that sort of made them stronger to have to go through that. The current players, it's a lot more comfortable, right, to travel with US Soccer and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure the nutrition, the meals are much nicer, hence the soft. But then at the same time, there's not any media focus to on the other side of that to balance it out and make it harder. So you're just trying to provide that sort of roughness that they had to come up with. Yeah. And it's just going to come from him instead of coming from horrible hotels.
Yeah. And then if you want more on this, you can hear our earlier conversation where we kind of came to similar conclusions.
Okay, so today's show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. If you'd like to create your own sort of custom scarf, you are very, very, very welcome to do so. If you want to buy from the Roughneck Scarf shop, including many, many US Soccer scarves, you can get 20% off any order, 20% off Roughneck Scarves with the discount code. Can you remember it, Tyler?
I believe it is Total Soccer Show, all all one word, all uppercase.
That is it. 20% off with Total Soccer Show at roughneckscarves.com. The link will be in the show notes.
There we are. I believe you have one more note from your Roughneck Scarves ad copy, my friend.
I wrote co-commentator was Mark Followell because I think the first time we talked about this, we were saying, was it Adrian Healy? No, he's on ESPN. It wasn't John Strong. Weren't sure who that was. And I just kind of felt disrespectful afterwards for not knowing who it was. So it was Mark Followell who was doing the Mike Myers impression.
So thank you to Mark Followell for staring straight ahead and not saying anything. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show. Thank you to everyone who sent in listener questions. We've got 2 more.
We do. This one is from Brian McIntyre. You want me to ask it?
Sure.
Brian McIntyre.
Actually, no, I'll ask this because I think you have stronger feelings about this than I do. Brian McIntyre says, you talk a lot about the lack of quality fullbacks on the U.S. men's team. If we lack true fullbacks, why don't we play a 3-back system with wingbacks? I would love to see the U.S. play a variation of a 3-4-3, 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1-2, 3-4-2-1 with Fabian Johnson and DeAndre Yedlin as the wingbacks. That way you can get both Johnson and Nagbe on the field and playing on the left where they are both more comfortable. What do you think?
I think that, so many people kind of ask this question, right? The solution to not having enough quality fullbacks is not to go with wingbacks, because wingback is just a harder version of fullback, right? Yep. Wingback is like playing fullback with one arm tied behind your back, or it's like playing fullback if you extend the field by 50%, right? So the solution is not to make it harder for the fullbacks. You're still asking DeAndre Yedlin there to do more work, and then if DeAndre Yedlin goes down injured, who's your next wingback? It's Graham Zusi with more ground to cover, right? Yep. And then there's also the idea that if the US goes 3 at the back, then because the US is not one of the biggest and strongest nations in the world, the US will end up playing 5 in the back in many situations. See the game against Mexico at the Azteca. That was technically 3 centre-backs, but it ended up being 5, right? 5 in the back, because the wing-backs were in that game, I think, were Yedlin and DeMarcus Beasley. They ended up just like being part of a back 5, right? So if you're going to say, or if you're going to want it to be a really attacking winger, like, say, Paul Arriola, then you're essentially going to limit him to playing right-back instead of having him play right wing.
Yes, all of that is true, except for I think DeAndre Yedlin might have still been injured there. I can't remember who it was.
I think you're wrong.
Okay, well then there we go. Maybe I was. So I think that's about all. I mean, that pretty much. You
agree?
I just don't really have strong feelings about it one way or the other. I mean, I wouldn't hate trying it.
Yeah.
And I understand the idea behind it, but I just think like, with anything, because I'm one of those people who's like, oh yeah, let's try this, let's put this guy here. I don't see why that wouldn't work. And the reality is, it's a different position. It requires a lot of training and a lot of like learning how to play this position this specific way. Even if you're a wing back at club level, when you go play with the national team, it's a little different. It's a little more complicated.
I agree.
So I think it's not quite as easy as like plug them in and then it will totally work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be averse to trying it, but I also don't think it is the overall solution. I would say probably developing better fullbacks.
I say it's not the magic solution that a lot of fans think that it is, because you suddenly get all your best players on the field, because wingback comes with a lot of responsibility. So the player that goes there, I think people imagine it when they write the formation down as that player just attacking, but you've got to remember that player's also got to go back and defend. So you're asking a lot of that player, and you're kind of limiting the attacking impact he can have because he's going to have so much defensive responsibility. Okay, all that said, Brian has asked a question. I want to indulge it.
Here's my question though. Like you, when we did the Premier League draft or the African Federation draft, one or the other, like you picked Victor Moses because he's been a really good right wing back for Chelsea. He's not a right back. He's not a right. He's not a right wing back, certainly. But it worked really well. He picked it up and figured it out.
Yeah,
so why couldn't that happen with some of the
Chelsea
players?
were the best team in the league, right? I mean, they're going at it from being a dominant team, so it can work for them.
I mean, but why would it work for him? What I'm saying is, like, why would it work for a specific player who's never played it before? If our argument is like, oh, this is really hard, they might not be able to do it.
But look how little defensive work Moses has to do, because Chelsea are on the front foot so much. It's a lot of, he's essentially a right midfielder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's tougher for the United States.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so I did want to, because I've like ragged on the question a little bit, I want to indulge it as well. If we did do this type of situation, like if we say Graham Zusi couldn't be the wing back, or the right midfielder who has the whole flank in say a 3-4-3 type thing, who could? Are there any players who you think might be able to do it?
I mean, I think it's difficult because it's not like we don't have any fullbacks, but we've got tons of wingbacks that we can choose from. I mean, it's basically still the same pool of players. It's just trying to figure out if they might fit there. So I do think that like the Fabian Johnson, DeAndre Yedlin pairing is probably the most logical shout.
I'm still not fully convinced by that. I mean, I would say like Yedlin's got a motor and he's got the pace to go up and down, but does he have the sort of positional smarts to do it? And then does Fabian Johnson have the motor to go up and down?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about playing against a weaker opposition, then I would say yes.
So maybe this is the way to do it then. If we think that this is the US on the front foot, we're not trying to play Brazil in the round of 16. Right. We're sort of, maybe we're playing Lithuania in the group stage, and we're thinking, all right, we can take this to them.
I'm pretty sure they're not going to the World Cup. But yeah, I'm with you in spirit.
Okay, Lithuania in an experimental friendly, and we're going at them, and our wingbacks
Why are you picking on Lithuania?
I just chose a team.
It's an odd one. I mean, yeah, so I think Fabian Johnson, DeAndre Yedlin are the two that would most likely be there. You could maybe argue, I think, like, you love you some Paul Areola.
Yeah.
Maybe he could do that one?
I think Paul Areola kind of has the complete package in terms of work rate and the technique he has to, like, take it down that wing really fast. So, yeah, maybe Paul Areola. Mm-hmm. I'll put him in The Sopranos, I think. Christian Roldan.
Yeah.
Christian Roldan. Tyler Adams. I got well into Tyler Adams.
You love a center midfielder as a right wing back.
Well, Christian Roldan has played right wing and right back, right? Tyler Adams is playing right wing back for New York Red Bulls. I could see him doing that. I'm noticing we're doing all right-sided players.
Yeah, I mean,
we're a very unbalanced team.
Again, it's still the deficiency in the United States roster. I mean, it's probably Jorge Villafana is the one who, I mean, he's already the left back.
Yeah.
I think he's probably the starting left back right now, unless it's Fabian Johnson. So maybe you put him a little bit further forward and see what he can do. Can
we regenerate DeMarcus Beasley so that he has the legs to go up and down that entire left flank? Because he kind of is the guy that could do it.
Except the last time we talked about the U.S. national team, I said it's time to say goodbye to DeMarcus Beasley. And I'm not going to really change that one. I love DeMarcus Beasley, but I think that we can maybe say goodbye, and certainly can say goodbye to him covering all of the ground on the left side.
My choice is 2002 DeMarcus Beasley.
Sure. Fair enough. And then Kellen Acosta would be the other possible one.
Yes, I mean, we really want him to be a midfielder at this point, but I think he has the skill set. You could maybe ask him to do it if we were really all in on this.
Whatever. I think I've decided that Weston McKennie is my starting midfielder. So, I mean, there's room to move around.
Get on out to the wings, Kellen.
Yeah.
But we seem to have hit the end of the list pretty fast here, right? Because if you think of a team that actually does this, like Costa Rica, every time they name a roster, there are endless actual wingbacks on there. Like it's Gamboa and Mitarita. I've forgotten his name. Matarita. And loads of other guys, right?
I was wondering how long that list was going to go.
Honestly, if you gave me some time. So Calvo is a centre-back who can play left wing-back. You've got... there are more. I promise there are more. On the left, you've got Brian Oviedo. You've got Salvatierra. I'm sure there are other guys after that as well. I'm going to name 4 plus 4.5 with Calvo. I named. Right?
Countless.
I mean, 4.5 is a weird number to count. More than the US, put it that way.
Except we listed 7, so...
No, but these are guys who can actually do it, like proven to do it. We're kind of hoping some guys can do it. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Don't you laugh at me. All right, I hope we answered Brian's question.
Mm-hmm. And we have a possible bonus question from Jared Moore. It says, what do you appreciate the most about the TSS community? He says, I know it's a sappy question.
This is also, when we set up the new question form at totalsoccershow.com/questions, and we said, instead of emailing them to us, please do them via this form so that we can keep them all in a spreadsheet and keep track of all the questions. This was the first one that we got, so this is why I really wanted to answer it, and it's a chance to talk about our listeners. So, do you want me to go first since you asked it? I don't want it to look like I've sort of bounced it back to you. Honestly, so I've got a good list of things here, scribbled on my piece of paper. One of the things I feel like our listeners have been very supportive of us as independent media and wanting us to succeed. Like, I almost feel like they're kind of pushing us over the line sort of towards success. Success being that we get to do this full-time and not have any other jobs at some point in the future. Right now we do it full-time and have other jobs. But listeners have helped push us there, not just financially, but with sort of encouraging emails and like spreading the word about the show, leaving us great iTunes reviews. Just getting the word out and pushing us forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree with that. I think I also really appreciate the diversity and variety of our listeners. Just that from the interactions we've had with people on Twitter or via email, we have people of all, races, colors, and creeds, income levels, religious backgrounds. We've got a lot of diversity out there, and I always enjoy that aspect of it because it kind of, number one, it keeps you on your toes because it kind of but number two, it also just kind of reminds you that there are lots of different people out there who all like the same thing.
And I also like there are people with specialized knowledge. Do you remember this would be 2014, 2015? We had we do have some tangent conversations on TSS. We were talking about the Corellius effect. Was it the Corellius effect? I've even forgotten what it's called. The Corellius effect with the water. And we got an email from Patrick Jones basically explaining it to us, right? And there's one time we were talking about female players' performances increasing, improving after they give birth. And we got an email from Jason Fleischer saying there's evidence that suggests that sort of pregnancy possibly regenerates cells and stuff and it improves your athletic performance.
It's leftover stem cells.
So there's all this
apart,
all this great like really specialized knowledge that we can get from our listeners and about specific teams, because obviously we have knowledge gaps about various teams. People will let us know things. So I love all that listeners will sort of use their knowledge to enrich what we can bring to the show, right? Yeah. And these aren't complaining emails. These are like, hey guys, how about this cool thing? Yeah, right. I love those emails.
And then I think a lot of time it's like funny, energetic, engaged listener base, and I think that's always rewarding, because if we were putting these shows out and just getting zero response, we probably wouldn't still be doing the show. So it helps to kind of get that feedback, get that response back, and generally it's very like helpful feedback and helpful comments and helpful criticism.
Yeah, it's almost always good-natured, right? Yep. Even the criticism and the comments. Like, I genuinely like going on Twitter, looking at our @, because it's like 99% friendly. And even when it's kind of saying we got something wrong, like Adam Overberg recently corrected some German pronunciation. And I think I was a little saltier than maybe I should have been, but he did it in a very friendly way, and I really appreciated it. And there's a lot of that going on.
And I'd say my final one would just be...
And if there's not, when it's unfriendly, we just mute you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I would also say that like I do like the idea of it being an actual community, like a TSS community. And I say that because, for example, I won't give her full name, but I'll just say Danielle, vet tech in Northern Virginia, has helped me many times with my dog, who is about as clumsy as I am and tends to hurt herself on a fairly consistent basis. So there's been a lot of like, hey, does this need staples? Does this need stitches?
Is the answer yes every time?
Pretty much, yeah. So I like, and just that's one example, but there's lots of other ones of people who are like, oh yeah, like I can do this, or I have that, or what about this, or I can offer you that skill. Like it's just a very like kind of old school community, like it takes a village sort of situation.
I'll say this as well: we've met up with listeners who've like come through town because they're staying in Richmond for a few days or whatever, and they reach out and say, hey, would you guys be interested in meeting up? Every time we've done it, they've been great people. I'm talking about Ed, Will, Dana. We met up with those guys, and I've got this confidence now that someone who's a TSS listener, if they ask to meet up, I'm pretty confident they're going to be good people. You know what I'm saying?
Just wait till Tywin Lannister rules.
Right.
You're going to regret that statement.
Talking about lions and stuff. Yeah.
Well, speaking of
lions and groves.
Yeah,
that would scare me.
Speaking of our wonderful, wonderful listener base and supporters, should we do some scouting?
Oh, I forgot this is the biggest thing that our listeners contribute to the show with information in the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
They sure do.
Let's move on. Scouting Network.
The 7 reports today. First up is Patrick Snyder. Scouting Nick Tatagui, I think is what we've landed on as the pronunciation. 18-year-old American midfielder for Schalke. Patrick sent us the highlights of Tatagui's performance for the Schalke U19 side. He drew a penalty and had a lovely run through the defense that ended in a great pass to assist on Schalke's go-ahead goal in their 3-1 defeat of Dusseldorf.
All right, Tatagui. How many E's are you putting on the end of that?
Tatagui.
Like
6, I think.
I have a report from Juan Carlos Salas scouting Mallory Pugh, the 19-year-old American attacker for Washington Spirit. Juan Carlos says, first off, congrats. Oh, Taylor says, first off, congrats to Juan Carlos, who got married over Labor Day weekend. Congrats.
He was very apologetic about not sending Mallory Pugh scouting reports because he'd been planning a wedding. And that's fine. That takes precedent.
Did he say not one but 2 ceremonies? I think I remember seeing this email. Yeah, so that's double wedding duty you're doing there. Yeah. But one bride.
Yeah.
Secondly, since her debut with the Spirit, Juan Carlos says, Pugh has played in 14, started 11 and scored 4 goals. She's the youngest player to score in NWSL history, according to the NWSL website. Less stellar news is that the Spirit are second bottom in the NWSL. On the national team front, Pugh was selected by Jill Ellis for a pair of matches against New Zealand in September. We're in the sort of the zone with Mallory Pugh where I think we're also getting into with Christian Pulisic, when the early excitement has sort of given way to more like regular player, as in they're not capable of beating everyone all at once for us.
Yeah.
We have to like ride the ups and downs.
I think so. Elijah Chappell scouting Joe Willock, not 189-year-old, I'm going to say 18-year-old English midfielder for Arsenal's U23s.
Is that his type or yours?
I think that's mine.
Okay.
Because we don't have the age gap, or we don't have the age field in there anymore.
Sorry, I need to fix the form. Yeah.
Okay. Joe started the U23s match against Manchester United's U23s and put in a consistent performance in which he helped create multiple chances. For those and other efforts, he was included in the Arsenal team photo for this season.
Do you think that's how it works?
Yes, I'm sure.
If you play well for the U23s, you get to be in the first team photo.
I think so. I'm sure it's not at all the fact that Arsenal needed to fill out the photo.
They're like,
lots of departures, not a lot of arrivals.
Gideon, take a step right. Gideon Zelen, take a step right.
Keep going.
Again. And again.
Yeah.
And again. Oh, it's funny. It's sad because it's true.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian Kelly is scouting Sander Berger. pronounce that correctly, Sander Berge, the 19-year-old Norwegian defensive midfielder for Genk. Brian says, Sander is getting regular first-team minutes at Genk and has impressed. Arsenal, Everton and Sevilla were all interested in signing Berge during the most recent transfer window, with Sevilla reportedly offering 15 million euros. However, Genk are intent on keeping their top talents so as to challenge for the title this year. So instead, the youngster signed a new deal that will keep him in Belgium until 2021. I'm going to add theoretically.
Theoretically, as always. Vu Tran scouting Mahmoud Daoud, the 21-year-old German midfielder for Borussia Dortmund. Daoud started in Dortmund's Champions League match against Tottenham and was subbed off for Gonzalo Castro in the 72nd minute. He played well alongside Nuri Sahin and should have had an assist if not for an incorrect offside decision. He put in a great left-footed cross from the right-hand side to Aubameyang, which was buried in the back of the net.
We saw the goal, right?
For offside.
He was definitely onside.
It was because every other player on the Dortmund team was offside.
Yeah.
So it looked like Aubameyang was
But none
too.
of them interfered with play, right? So it definitely should have been Aubameyang's
Definitely
goal.
should have been.
Oh, all right. Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tielemans, a 20-year-old Belgian central midfielder for Monaco. Steve says, Tielemans started and scored in Monaco's 1-1 draw with RB Leipzig. His goal was a combination of soccer and hockey, in that it came from a nice cross and a good header, but the header was saved, spilled between the keeper's legs and was bouncing loose until Tielemans put the ball into the back of the net. We saw this too, right? Steve concludes with, quote, perhaps I can convince young Yuri to come play for the Caps, I guess the Vancouver Whitecaps.
The Washington.
I see. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They need someone who can score those kind of goals in the playoffs.
There you go.
Unquote.
Yep. Because it was Tielemans who won the header, but then when it was spilled and loose, he was the one who kind of just poked it through at the very end.
So is that kind of what happens in front of the hockey goal?
You gotta. I think it was the 5-hole nature of it going through the keeper's legs that really appealed to Steve.
Can we have a side mention for RB Leipzig's goal in that Monaco Leipzig game? So I don't think we talked about it on our Champions League review show.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking of Emil Forsberg. Emil Forsberg. So he scores RB Leipzig's first ever Champions League goal. Timo Werner is looking for that pass 3 times and definitely should have received it.
All 3 times.
Until Forsberg scored it,
and then kind of didn't celebrate either. It's sort of like, you scored, but you shouldn't have done that.
Some Swedish selfishness. Very uncharacteristic of Scandinavia.
You want to be the first goal scorer. You want to be the first goal scorer. Daniel Jones scouting Cody Cropper. Final report of the day. 24-year-old American goalkeeper for the New England Revolution.
This is going to be bad. But without reading it, I can tell you this is going to be bad.
Yep. Cropper was in goal for the Revolution as they lost 7-0 to Atlanta United. The Revs picked up 2 red cards inside the first 38 minutes and were 4-0 down at halftime, thanks in part to 2 Atlanta penalties. Cropper couldn't really do much about any of the goals, especially since no one on his team was really doing anything either.
Did you see someone sent us the stats from this game, which are even worse?
They're
I think
ridiculous.
there were no shots on goal from New England and 21, I think, from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, when you're 2 players down that early, it's not great. Because I think the first red card was like 18th minute. And then again, 2 penalties in there as well.
But still 7-0. 7-0.
Yeah.
Worth noting, I believe I said to Rob Usry when I talked to him that I believed in new stadium curse.
Yeah,
and maybe Atlanta would struggle moving into their new stadiums. So far, I think in 2 games they've scored 10 goals and conceded 0.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's early. It's early.
It is early, but there's not that much of the regular season left, so it's not going to ruin their playoff push, right? No. Should also mention, I heard from a lot of Vancouver Whitecaps fans. Did you see these tweets? So I'd mentioned about Atlanta Stadium being that thing that like converts between a football and a soccer stadium and how they do the top tier thing, and it's really good. And I said it was the first in MLS. Apparently Vancouver have been doing this in their own stadium for a while. My apologies to all British Columbians. Is that what it's called? Sure. My apologies to all British Columbians.
That's good of you. And that's good of, you want to do the scouting report read through?
I was leaving it to you.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
All right.
I definitely didn't just forget it.
And thank you to Patrick, Juan Carlos, Elijah, Brian, Vu, Steve, and Daniel.
Not bad. A little hesitant in the middle, but not bad.
All right.
Thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports and questions. If you would like to join the Scouting Network and support the show, you go to TotalSoccerShow.com/join. $5 a month gets you in the Scouting Network. $10 a month guarantees we answer 1 question per month of yours on TSS. If you have questions for us, please send them to TotalSoccerShow.com/questions. Those links will be in the show notes. Sorry, Taylor, it'll be your job to put them there. Okay, Taylor Rockwell, thank you.
I'm making show notes right now. Thank you very much
for taking the time to talk to me today and to put the notes in the show.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.